Phantasm. The disillusion of a disordered mind. A phantom. A spirit. A ghost. Good evening, all you sinners out there. Welcome to the premiere episode of Saturday Night Cinema with Sawyer St. I'm your host, Sawyer St., the mistress of the mausoleum. On tonight's episode, we're going to be taking a look into Phantasm 3, The Lord of the Dead. It was released straight to VHS May 6th, 1994. Our tagline for this movie is quite interesting. It reads, "We tried to warn you. If you don't get it this time, we'll have to drill it into your head." Oh my, sounds pretty forceful there. The studio that it was released on is Starway International Enterprises, and then later with Anchor Bay Entertainment on DVD. Leading up to this, there were two other movies, of course. It said it in the title. This is the third, with the first coming out 1978 and the second one almost 10 years later at 1988. The director and writer for all of the 5 movies in the franchise is Don Coscarelli. And our main cast for this movie is Angus Scrimm, reprising his role as the tall man, as he does in all 5 movies. We have Reggie Bannister. He plays Reggie, so you can kind of keep that pretty straight. Again, all 5 movies. Next, we have A. Michael Baldwin, reprising his role as Mike. We get introduced to a new character, Rocky, played by Gloria Lynn Henry. She is a complete badass female who has some pretty awesome nunchuck skills. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later. We have Kevin Connors playing Tim, and for a child his age, he's pretty rock solid emotionally, I would say. He takes on a lot of stuff that, as a young child, I would run in terror from. And then coming back after 16 years, we have Bill Thornberry as Jody. Now, he kind of doesn't spend a whole lot of screen time, but we hear his voice and his presence is definitely there. Again, we'll circle back to that later. We have the 3 scavengers that our cast comes across. Edna, played by Cindy Ambule. Henry, played by John Davis Chandler. And Rufus, played by Brooks Gardner. In 1994, this movie won a Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Limited Release / Direct-to-Video Film. Also in that year, March 1994, it was on Fangoria's cover for that month. So, if this movie were to be released in a theatrical sense back in 94, it would have gone up against certain titles as, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, The Crow, one of my personal favorites, Interview with a Vampire. Okay, and so for a quick rundown of the plot summary. The tall man, the opposing menace from Morningside Mortuary, well, he's back and once again inside the minds of Mike and Reggie. The friends continue their hunt for the tall man, running into dangerous situations, enemies, and some friends along the way. They also must fight off the resurrected dead that are doing the deeds of the tall man, plus a growing number of the infamous and deadly silver spears. You know, those cool little things that, you know, fly around the air and kind of, you know, look cool until they get up close to you and then, you know, drill into your brain and, yeah, they shoot the blood. I mean, they're cool in theory, right? How was that?
Keep going, dude.
Okay, well, I mean, that's my plot, that's summary. Okay. So, I'm going to give you, you know, some of my thoughts and feelings and insights. Like I have, you know, some really thought-provoking stuff to say about this movie. So, first off, I love how the movie starts off with giving you a really great sort of rundown and not a whole lot of backstory, but still enough backstory that you can, you know what's going on in a sense if you haven't seen the first two. But I suggest you watch the first two. I mean, especially the first one. It's really fucking cool. But anyways, so I love that it gives you that refresher. For anyone who's not familiar with the franchise, you get a little called up. The first movie. First off, I love the first movie. And at some point, I'll get back to letting y'all know more about that. I will be doing a video for that in the future. But the first movie had more of a dreamlike quality within how it switched from time to time, and even the way that it was filmed, it feels very airy, light, and dreamlike, even in some of the more action-packed sequences. Now, Phantasm 3 takes a bit of a different approach. It has the dreamlike quality, but only in certain situations in which you need to kind of feel that. Example, we see a Dream of Reggie's. I wish I hadn't seen some of the Dream of Reggie's, but we did. Anyways, that dreamlike quality needs to be there so that you kind of know that you're in a dream. But you would know that he was dreaming once you see the movie. It's kind of obvious. But I digress. Phantasm 3 has a much more traditional 90s horror movie feel to it. But that's a good thing. I love 90s horror movies. But I do kind of wish that you got a little bit more of the dreaminess of the first one. So, even though we don't see a whole lot of the tall man, really in many of the movies, his presence is still there constantly in the devastation that you see that he does from town to town that they're traveling in. And even though he doesn't have a whole lot of lines, he treads that line between, you know, some of the other horror movie greats as Jason and Mike Myers that never speak versus Freddy who can't shut up. Don't get me wrong, don't come for me. I love Freddy. He has a very special place in my heart. But sometimes you just wish that he would shut up. again, don't come for me. But the tall man, in the lines that he has, very simple, very straightforward, it creates an even more mystery about him. Like, what is he? What is he doing? Because in the first and second movies, I mean, we saw him, you know, taking some bodies, but we didn't know what he was doing with them. I mean, what is he doing? I need to know. What does he do with these bodies? We get a glimpse of what he does with them in this movie. So you know those little spears that I was talking about, you know, the silver balls. There's a lot of balls in this movie. Anyways, so he shrinks down the bodies so that, you know, your brain becomes, you know, smaller, more compact. And then he takes those out and puts them into the balls. I don't know why. I mean, he is, you know, he's got telekinesis, so technically he can make a sphere do whatever he wanted to without a brain, right? You would think, at least. That's how I think telekinesis works, right? Anyways, so their brain's inside of there. And he, you know, uses them to do his bidding, and one even had an eyeball that popped out and was staring Mike right in the face. It's kind of creepy. It's actually really creepy. I also don't understand why everyone, like, blood in this is mustard colored. So, makes me not want to eat hot dogs anymore. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. So, we learn that the spheres actually have a name. They're sentinels. You know, and not like those from Marvel that are big robots. I mean, these are just little balls. Sentinels. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I would have loved for them to come up with something, you know, maybe a little more comedic for big silver balls flying everywhere. I don't know. We can all dream. And then these little tiny dwarves that are lurking around in the dark. Well, Tim actually says that they're lurkers. I don't know if that's technically what their name is, or if, you know, Tim just decided, you know, to make sure that they had a name. But from what I can gather, like, they're you know, they might be some of those, like, dead people that he's got, like, shrunk down. Like, eating people's faces and stuff, like zombies. Like, little mini zombies running everywhere. In cloaks that make them look like monks. I don't know. I'm confused. They're kind of cool, though. You don't see a whole lot of them in this movie, except for, like, in the beginning. But, you know, they're kind of neat. I like them, at least. And so, Edna and Rufus and Henry. So, there's some guys that, you know, poor little Reggie runs into when he goes to a town that Jody had told him that, you know, he needed to check out. And it didn't end up too well for Reggie. They ended up, like, you know, trying to knock him. Well, they did knock him out. They didn't try. They did. And stuffed him in the back of the car. Tried to, you know, steal from him. It doesn't look like Reggie really carries much money anymore anyways. He's just all the time, you know, trying to get his hands on the tall man. Make sure that Mike is safe. Because again, the tall man's after Mike, and we still don't know why he wants Mike so bad. At this point, at least. Is he, like, the one? What is he... What has Mike got that everyone else doesn't, you know? Maybe in the fourth one we'll know more. I'll have to check that one out, too. Anyways, again, off topic. So, like, they beat him up and stick him in the car, and that's how he meets Tim. Because they go to his house, because Tim's house is really big and looks like it might have some good stuff in it. But then they come into contact with Tim. Well, first, his house is set up like a nightmarish version of Home Alone. Because the tall man took his parents. But anyways, nightmare version of Home Alone. With like a bajillion more clowns than what needs to be. I don't understand. Clowns are pretty freaky. I don't know why you would decorate your house with them. Ew. But we find out that, like, Tim has some really badass survivor skills. I mean, you know, he can throw a tomahawk like nobody's business, just right on target. It's crazy. And he made a frisbee with razor blades on it. My mind was blown when I saw that. And also I was wondering how I could get my hands on one, because that's pretty sweet. So, you know, he kills these 3 that are trying to, you know, steal from his house and hurt him. Just, you know, a young boy trying to survive in a dystopian tall man world. Personally, I would just flee, like, to Canada. And you'll find out why I said Canada in a little bit. But, so he hears, you know, some stuff going off in the back of Reggie's car. And so, you know, he's like, oh crap, they've got another one. And then Reggie, you know, was like, hey, if I'm one of them, why am I in my trunk? Which, to me, is valid. It's a valid point. Unless, you know, those guys just really didn't like you and they just kept you around for shits and giggles. Which Reggie is really good for. He's our comic relief a lot of times in this movie. I'll touch back on that a little bit later as well. I know I'm saying that a lot, but, you know, it's... Anyways. So, you know, Reggie and Tim, they, like, team up. Reggie tries to drop him off somewhere, and Tim's just too smart for him. I think everybody's a little too smart for Reggie. Anyways, he'll be glad that he's there later on. So they go to this, you know, beautiful, absolutely beautiful mausoleum where Reggie again comes into contact with the Sentinel. He just can't, you know, seem to get away from those. But he's also attacked by 2 other people. Rocky, you know, our badass from, you know, what I listed off the actors, and her friend. Unfortunately, her friend doesn't live too long. The Sentinel, you know, into her head and drills, and you get a close-up of the drill so you can really, like, see what's going on, and then a whole lot of blood, just buckets of it shooting out of her head. That looked like her whole body blood, just all of it. Oof. See, and I don't understand, like, you know, why she just stood there watching this thing come straight at her face. I mean, things come straight at me and I duck. But she, you know, she didn't do that. Anywho, so, you know, Rocky's checking on her friend, and then the silver ball just, whoop, you know, pops up. And I'm thinking, get out. But, you know, she doesn't. She stands her ground against the silver ball, and she nunchucks it. which sends it into a tailspin for a second. It also breaks her nunchucks. But she hit it, so that's the important thing. But it comes back after her and Reggie, of course. And then Tim, the crack shot with a pistol that he is, kills it. Well, I guess technically you can't kill it. Like, he shot it a couple times and it exploded. So he destroyed it. Destroyed is a much better word. So, Tim and, Reggie, want Rocky to come with them because there's nothing left in this town. Everything's gone. Everyone's gone. Everyone. And she's like, no. I got important stuff to do right here. I'm not doing it. So you think that that's the end of our friend Rocky, but lo and behold, on the side of the road, here's Rocky. Out in the middle of nowhere. What seems to be miles away from where they left her. I don't know how she got there that fast. Really? I don't know how much time passed to begin with. Oh well. But, the main thing here is that I want to, get to is poor Reggie. He takes so much of the hits in this movie. Yeah, other people are attacked, but not quite like Reggie is. And, maybe, it's because he's been fighting the tall man since, that first movie, and the tall man is just done with him. He keeps keeping him away from, his goal of getting Mike. Which the tall man gets him and then stuffs him away. I guess because it was too early in the movie, maybe? But it's you finally got your hands on what you were wanting this whole 2.5 movies, and now you're just gonna throw him in the back? Doesn't seem right. I guess for the sake of, storytelling, can't have a 45-minute movie and just call it that, right? Still, if I got my hands on what I've been wanting this whole entire time, I probably would have done something more than just hey boy, go to the back. Well, and like I said, Reggie is our comic relief. He has a very, Bruce Campbell Ash feel to him. Well, I mean, I say that, but, Ash he's a badass. And, Reggie's good, too. I mean, he has a shotgun. It's a quad shotgun. Seems a little bit overkill, but I guess when you're dealing with the tall man, you kind of need to pack a whole lot of power. Still, I think it's a bit much. But funny that, we feel that he kind of has a Bruce Campbell-ish, quality to him, because him and Bruce actually did a movie together, Bubba Hotep. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's pretty great. I mean, if you like Elvis, you might like this. And it's written and directed by our director, Don, here. So, I mean, it's a great movie. He's a great writer. I like a lot of the stuff he's done and didn't even realize that it was him that did it. Maybe I should pay attention more to the writers of things and kind of look deeper into their line of work. Maybe I'll find some more things that I've become a big fan of. But anyways, so, the three of them worked together on a movie before. And Don's worked with Reggie a lot. I mean, you know, we've got the 5 Phantasm movies, Bubba Hotep, a couple other things that I saw down in his IMDb. I guess when, you know, you like an actor, you stick with them, right? So, moving on, you know, I said that Jody was back, but he's not really back. I mean, so he died in the first one in a car crash because, spoiler alert, Phantasm, at least the, 3 that I've laid some eyes on, they all have car chases. All of them. That ended in glorious explosions. I mean, I think we had at least 2 in the first one. And the second one ended in, a car chase. And then the third one has a car chase. The third one has a car chase with zombies, though. Like those scavengers, Edna, Henry, and Rufus. Yeah, they come back as zombies. Several times, actually. We've got the car crash. And then, again, later on in the movie. I don't know how they keep coming back. I don't understand. Is it possible that they come back for the 4th? Or are we just getting our hopes up that, they're indestructible zombies? Guess we'll have to wait and see. Anywho, Jody is back, but he's in the form of a sentinel. So somehow Jody was able to, his brain survived a car crash, an explosion. Nothing makes sense anymore. So he's in the sentinel. But somehow he's able to take control of it, at least somewhat. So that it's, so that he can help Reggie and Mike. But, also, the tall man can lock on to, his location. So, it doesn't really do them too much good. I mean, because of Jody, though, we know where Mike is, and we get to save him. At least, you think. But the tall man ends up finding them in this absolutely gorgeous mausoleum that they thought they were safe in because they thought that would be the last place that the tall man would look. But, in his history, he always goes to the mausoleums. So, I mean, doesn't really seem like a good idea now, does it? So as Jody can sometimes come into form in front of you. He got into Reggie's brain during his dream. He sat on top of Mike's head for some reason. I don't know. It was weird. He was just... Mike was... that was just odd. I think that would be the last thing that I would do if I'm laying in a mausoleum and there's someone after me. Don't think that I would just sit there with, something that he could possibly take control over again, sitting on my head. That would drill into my skull. But, again, it's a Phantasm movie and a lot of things don't make sense. So Mike makes a connection that the tall man doesn't like the cold. That's why I said I would go to Canada if the tall man was after me. He has an aversion to cold. It doesn't kill him. It just slows him way, way down. The vessel that he's in. Because we learn that him and Mike actually have golden sentinels in their head. I don't know what the gold means. This is within, the last 10 minutes of the movie, so of course we're not going to get all of our answers like we want. But we do learn gold sentinels. in the tall man and Mike. So they have a connection. We just don't know exactly what it is. And Mike takes off running into the night. And Jody reminds Reggie for the last time, and like he has said in the movie quite a bit, that seeing is easy, but believing takes more time. I'm believing that I'm not going to ever find the answers that I want from this movie. Hopefully 4 and 5 will wrap things up in a nice little bow. So we come to the end, and it has a very like Argento jump scare ending. And I say this, and I hark back to, you know, what I said before, that it has a very dreamlike quality of the, you know, the first one did. You know, our director has Italian roots. So the first one, you see it a lot, very stylistic of the Italian horror films of the 70s. And so seeing this, you know, last little homage, if you will, to that era of horror movies, especially, you know, the Italian ones, really makes me feel like he is very inspired of the movies that came from at least where his parents were born. He grew up in, you know, California, so at least it feels like he was very inspired, that his parents may have, you know, instilled some, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, he got some inspiration, it feels like, from those movies, which I'm a big fan of. Suspiria. That's gonna be another one that we're gonna talk about. But anyways, so he wraps it up with that nice little jump scare. And I mean, for a minute though, you think everything's gonna be okay, and you know, then the tall man pops up and he's like, you know, that basically it's never gonna end. But all in all, Phantasm 3, Lord of the Dead, is one of the best movies that I've seen in a good while. I mean, listen, I know it came out in '94, but I'm gonna say that it's like, you know, up there, really high in the tops of the horror movies. It's really fun. I like the Phantasm franchise. The tall man creeps me out. He's scary. He haunts my dreams. Just that look and that one eyebrow that he raises up sends chills down my spine. It's probably because he doesn't talk much. You don't know what's going on in that gold sentinel brain of his. Anywho, this has been fun, you guys. I hope that you will join me next week for our next installment of Saturday Night Cinema with Sawyer St. Have a truly horrifying evening. Bye!